I've never slept late, never sat down, I'm told to stand straight.
Hi, Sam. How are you?
I'm good. Welcome to my kitchen.
Welcome to my office. So, where are you right now in the world and what are you doing?
I'm in Sydney, Australia, and at the moment I'm sitting in my kitchen having a day off. I'm currently doing Anything Goes at the Opera House, and Mondays being our day off is a very nice day for me.
Sam, tell us a little bit about your experience and your journey with the Rob Guest Endowment Award.
Yes, so I auditioned for the Rob Guest Endowment a few years ago, and I was petrified to audition, and I hadn't auditioned years before because I was scared, really. I was like, I don't want to put myself out there and go, look, I'm this great singer, because that's what it felt like to me, saying I'm going to go for this singing competition. And then I decided to do it because at that time I thought, if you don't challenge yourself, you're never going to improve. So what do you have to lose? Is like another audition. If you want to get better at auditions, go in and sing then. So I auditioned the first round, and I remember walking out and saying to my boyfriend Mark, oh, it was terrible. Oh no, I'm so nervous. And then I got through the next round. So it's never as bad as you think it is. And then the top 30, and we did a little dance, and then we sung again, and that felt all right. And we also did they did this great thing where they ask you questions about, kind of like this, about why you perform and what you want from your future. Mm-hmm. And I thought that was so lovely and so great to talk about with a professional panel. And they were very warm and welcoming. And then I got through the top 6, and the gala performance was not like I thought it was going to be, which is why I was scared all those years. It wasn't intimidating. It didn't feel like a competition. It felt like we were all very supportive, and we were just ready to go out and show the audience and the industry, what we love to do. Mm-hmm. And I was so impressed and inspired by the other 5 performers that were with me on the night of the gala, because we were all very different, and it was so amazing to see 6 different performers, the other 5 so great at what they do and so unique. Yes. And I think that's what the Rob Guest Endowment really celebrates, performers' unique qualities, because I think so often we go into auditions trying to fit a mold. Yes. And trying to change who you are. So please hire me, I can be this character, instead of just going, this is who I am. Uh-huh. Does the character suit me? And the Rob Guest Endowment really allows performers to accept that and to go, okay, I'm just going to be me, and I'm going to show you that side and what I love to do.
My essence.
And then I won, and that was very shocking.
Shocking and exciting.
It was very exciting. There's a great picture of my face when they say my name, and I was like, what?
Really?
What? I think actually Ed Gray, who was standing next to me, had to say to me, Sam, they said your name.
Sam, tell us, what was the first thing you remember that inspired you to sing?
I have this really fond memory of me as about maybe a 5 or 6 year old performing for my grandmother in her lounge room, and I remember holding a rose in my mouth and performing for her and her partner, dancing around and singing to, I don't even know the artist, it was one of her artists that she used to play all the time. And I was terrible, but God, I was passionate, and God, I was very enthusiastic.
So did you have a light bulb moment? Did you go, I think this is what I'm going to do when I grow up?
To be honest, no. I think I knew I wanted to do it my whole life. Mm-hmm. I always kept my options open at school and worked really hard during high school, but I think I always knew that I wanted to be a performer.
And what is it that you love about singing?
It's a really easy and a hard question, because what I love about singing, I love storytelling. Mm-hmm. And I think singing is a really important aspect in storytelling. I love that saying that they say, when you can't speak, you sing. And then when you can't sing, you dance. So I really think that because I love acting so much and storytelling, it's really the next level of that. And I love how much you can reveal through singing.
And do you think you always wanted it to be music theatre, or did you want it to be musical films, or did you have like an absolute vehicle in mind?
And no, it was always music theatre, and I don't even know why. I guess it's just one of those things that happens with artists and creative people, that they just hone into one thing and that's their love. And believe me, I have tried to sing other genres, especially pop. I've really given that a good go. And now it's just a bit of humour for my friends when I really embrace it as well. Contemporary music theatre, but yeah, I'm no Beyonce, but...
So, Sam, did you have a plan? Did you have a goal? I happen to know that you are extremely determined. I have watched you, really carve this path for yourself, like with absolute persistence and determination. Can you tell us a little bit about how you got to what you're doing now?
So I remember the day I pretty much, I think, told my parents that that's what I wanted to do, and they were very supportive, but I knew just as much as they knew that it was a very long it's a hard career to get into, but that's what I loved about it. I was, as you say, determined to prove that I could do it, and I think I knew the whole time that I would be able to do it, and I just saw that, growing those skills as a challenge and as an exciting challenge. I wasn't as good as the people around me, but that didn't deter me from working as hard or harder, that I could grow into the performer that I dreamed. And I still think that, I'm still not the performer I want to be, so I still work as hard as I can to achieve that. So when I was a teenager, I decided that I would finish high school, and then out of high school, the journey to become a professional music theatre performer would begin. And at that point, there's three major skills in music theatre: singing, dancing, and acting. And I got some advice. The one I should work on first is dance. I was kind of good at I was the same level at all three. So I really love acting the most, and singing and dancing went with it. But in order to get into an ensemble of a musical, I was told, dancing was a real important strength to hone in at the beginning. So I auditioned for Patrick Studios Australia, full-time school, and it was a 1-year course. I ended up staying for 4 because I didn't want to leave until I was as good as I wanted to be. But a funny story about when I auditioned is that the director, Todd Patrick, didn't accept me when I first auditioned. That's how not good I was at the time. But then luckily, because we had to do a summer school, and that was my audition, and then luckily he came into a music theatre class, and that was my time to go, please take me, look, I can do this, and luckily he did. And that was a little, I loved that I had to work to get into the school as well, that it wasn't just given to me, and then I had to prove, and then, because Todd did accept me, I wanted to show him, and that made me work harder. I wanted to show him that I could do it and could become the dancer that I wanted to be. So I spent 3 years doing full-time dance, and it was 3 of the most wonderful but hideous years of my life. It was hard and it was long, and I wasn't as good as everyone, especially to begin with. We'd be doing turns down the room and I didn't even know some of the names of the turns, and my kicks only went to 90 degrees. But what kept me going was my love for performing, I didn't just go down the room kicking a leg. I went down the room kicking that leg with, with the intention behind it. And but while I was there, I also made sure that I was working on my other skills. So I would go to PSA from 8:30 till 4:30, and then I would go to singing lessons and acting class after that. So yeah, I didn't want to leave PSA until I was the dancer that I wanted to be. And once I became that dancer, I realised, my voice can be better than it is. And I was very narrow-minded to what I thought my voice was, and then I met Tim Smith, and and he really opened up a world for me, and we set a plan on how to, I guess, expose my real voice. Is that I'd spent my whole life listening to musical CDs and artists and mimicking, I think, and I thought I was one kind of performer, and Tim showed me that I could actually be many kinds of performers. You know, I thought I would play this kind of a role, and he showed me that actually if you really let your voice be the voice that you have, you'll discover that you'll actually play these roles, or you'll sing these songs.
And that's actually what you're doing now.
Yeah.
Which is extraordinary. I as I said to you before, I'm thrilled, absolutely thrilled with your success, Sam. It's just, you know, we've just watched you go from this role to this role to this role to this role, and you know, it's
pretty exciting.
It's astounding, actually.
It's really amazing.
Yeah.
And I still set those goals now. You know, I had to have surgery on my foot after King Kong. I broke a bone and I had to have a year off, and that's a really hard thing. No dancing, no movement, couldn't work, and that was one of those prime examples of what do you do when you can't work? How can you better yourself? And I spent the first few months procrastinating and wasting time, and you know, feeling sorry for myself. And then I said, no, I'm going to use this time. And that's really hard to do when you're by yourself. You can go to an institution. When I went to PSA, it was easy. I had to rock up. You know, if you weren't there, you got yelled at. You got yelled down the room. You know, when you're in a singing lesson, you're paying for it. But when you're by yourself, it's really hard to motivate yourself. So here's my little secret. So
I was going to ask secrets, but this is good. Go.
So my boyfriend, Mark, is a student at NIDA, and I thought, well, he goes away for 10 hours a day and does work that whole time. I can be at home doing work that whole time. Easier said than done. So I made a little whiteboard with the days of the week up the top, and then I put on the side 45 minutes. That was my limit. I had to do 45 minutes of, you know, I would say my singing technique, repertoire, dialect work on my accents, acting work, so learning scenes for class, Alexander technique, all the voice work, so for my speaking voice for acting. So I put all these skills down the side, and then every day I would try and tick off. The idea was to do 45 minutes of every one of them. Didn't always work because I always did get distracted with something, you know, with phones these days. But it was really great because at the end of the week, I feel like I really achieved something, and I didn't waste that time, because I think so often we get to the end of the week and go, oh, I could have done all these things for my craft, but I didn't. So the board was a great thing, and then I'd take a picture of it at the end of every week, and then it was a really good motivator to keep me going, because by the end of the week I felt proud if I'd, you know, ticked off 90% of the board, going, I really must have achieved something. And it was actually the most growth I've had in my training yet, because I had to make myself, and that was important too. I made sure that there was me time. You know, I really love reading, and I love doing yoga, so I made sure that I gave myself those, and that just wasn't a workhorse, because I've definitely experienced that before, where all I do is work, and that's not a healthy balance either, and also keeps you motivated when you're working, because I find that once you are in a show, it's very easy to go, oh, well, I'm working every night, I'm not going to do any more work on my craft. But that's when you should be.
Did you do anything like that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Especially on an acting basis, you know, it's really easy to get on stage and give the same performance every night, which is a good thing for the company.
Yeah.
But it's really important that you're telling the story for the first time every night. And being in an ensemble, sometimes that's a challenge. But absolutely, I use all those things that I go to class in the day, acting class, or read books or singing practice, and then get to work and think, okay, well, how can I integrate this into my work, you know, on stage at the Opera House? And that and again, that's what makes you grow as a performer. And the amount of times I have changed as a performer during a show, it's incredible. You know, I go into a show as one kind of performer and come out as a different one because of the experiences on stage.
How do you feel when you see yourself perform?
I go through waves of filming myself, especially for acting work, and I don't know if it's good or bad. And sometimes I am really surprised and I get a bit proud of myself. I'm like, wow, you were so much better than I thought you were then. And then other times I cringe and I think, oh, you thought you really nailed that and you were flat that whole last note, or you were not connected to the other person. You know, in times that you thought you were communicating and emoting the right way, sometimes it's too much, or sometimes all you are is emoting. Or it's really interesting to watch that and to see what you're doing, because we're so easily critical of other people's performances that it's sometimes good to go, oh, I do that too, or no, I didn't know I did that, and yeah.
Do you have a dream?
So there are roles I'm really drawn to, and you know, when I see a brief come out, or a song that I'm going to sing, or a scene I want to learn, I'm really drawn to them. But I've discovered that that's not really in our control to choose which roles we will play. You know, I've been bitterly disappointed when I thought, oh, that's my dream role, and I could really do that, and then you get cut the first round. You know, so I think.
Do you think the roles choose you?
Yeah, I do. I do. I really do think that the roles choose us, and sometimes that's disappointing because you really think you could be that role. And it's amazing when you do find a role that you fit the connection that you have with that role.
What makes you choose your audition song?
Well, the first thing is it has to be a really great storytelling piece. It has to, and I have to connect to the story of the piece. And it doesn't have to be a deep, you know, heart-wrenching story, but it has to be something that I can relate to in some form of my life, or past or future or present. And then, look, I do love a big note. I do really love to belt. But then Tim also opened me up to this beautiful, legit, surrendering, beautiful other side of my voice that I wouldn't have thought I would have enjoyed as much before I started Vocal Alchemy, and I love that side as well. So I guess it's just storytelling and how, whether I can make someone feel something out of the song that I'm going to sing. So sometimes I choose songs and I'll say to my boyfriend, sit down and watch it. And he goes, oh, I don't think it suits you. And it's really funny because I'm like, what? No, I feel it. That's that thing about the dream roles, is that sometimes you can feel something, but then the audience don't. So it's so I pick first the song that I feel and I connect with, and then I'll get someone else's advice to say, what do you think? Do you feel something when I sing this? And if they do, it's a yay. If they don't, it's a no. The advice I would give a beginning singer is, if you love it, do it. I mean, I was not a great singer when I started out. Not good. I loved it and I was entertaining, but my voice wasn't, you know, amazing. It was okay. And if you really love it, do it. Work at it. Practice. Correct practice. Right practice makes perfect. Be open to change and be really brave. I think that's something as well, because singing, like any form of performance art, is so scary and intimidating. You know, you reveal so much of yourself. But if you really just be brave and take chances, then you'll see improvement.
So, Sam, what do you do when the going gets tough?
Being a performer is a huge roller coaster. We have huge highs, like going to work every night and being able to perform and then being paid for it. But then because it is our life and it is something we love, it's really tough when, you know, you don't get that job. And it's not so much about getting the job, it's about being rejected or feeling like you weren't good enough, which isn't the case, you know. Yeah. Sometimes it's you're just not right, but we always take it so personally. So I totally take things personally, and I also, if I feel like I've done a bad performance, it's not just when you're unemployed, it's also when you are employed and you feel like you haven't, you couldn't perform 100% or you didn't connect with it. That's really disappointing and can get hard as well.
So do you have a little self-talk regime?
Well, when it comes to rejection for things, I just remind myself, and it's my favourite saying, and all my friends are probably sick of me saying it to them as well, is that everything happens for a reason. And, you know, you might not get one job because in that time you need to learn something, or another job is waiting for you, or something else not related to work is meant to happen in that time. And I believe that in life as well, that everything happens for a reason. I'm a huge believer in fate. And when it comes to hard times about a performance, I'm still working on that one. I guess the important thing is to remember that it's just play. You know, what we do on stage is just playing. You know, it's not life or death, and that we're human, and that sometimes, you know, no one's perfect, and if you were, that would be boring. So I always remind myself, you know, if I hit a wrong note in an important audition, you know, I just don't feel like I've done a great job. I just remember, okay, well, that happened, so learn from it. And I think if I was perfect, I wouldn't be determined to improve and to work harder.
What are the top 3 things you think someone needs to know to make them a successful singer?
Well, kind of what I said about being a beginner singer, be brave. I think you've got to have courage and be willing to change. Education and knowledge, so not just in what you learn, but also about your own instrument and, you know, explore your own, and practice.
Fantastic. Now, if there is a difference between practice and then performance, what would it be?
The audience. Oh gosh, there's a huge difference between practice and performance. I mean, there's different kinds of practice. There's the very structured, technical, I'm going to make sure I'm, you know, thinking about all those things I was thinking in my acting lesson, and am I standing right, am I breathing right? And then when you do a performance, it's about, I've mentioned this a lot, but storytelling. Yes, you want, hopefully all those things that you've practiced will fall into the performance. But also it's funny, like I can be in my rehearsal room here and singing a song, and then I just, out of nowhere, I'll start crying in this song. I've never cried, and I feel it so much, and then I get on stage and sing it, and that doesn't happen because I realise there's an audience in front of me, and all of a sudden I'm thinking, oh no, there's an audience in front of me, and I'm not thinking about the story. So I think, and with time, you need to practice the thoughts that you're thinking the right things, so then when you do the performance, you're still thinking the right things. And I think that just takes, you know, every performance is practice as well. And I notice that with myself every time I perform in front of an audience. I, you know, just improve on the next step. It's like, they say 2 steps forward, 1 step back.
Tell us a little bit about Violet. What's, you know, because that's what's coming up next for you, isn't it? And you're playing the lead.
Yes, I am playing the lead of Violet Karl in the production of Violet that's going to play at the Hayes Theatre December this year for Blue Saint Productions. And, well, how it came about, Blue Saint is produced by Josh and Damien, and I worked with them on King Kong, and they helped me. Like, I was going through the Rob Guest endowment at that time, and, you know, I'd grab them and say, do you mind watching me do my numbers? What do you think? And they'd work with me, and also working with people you get to know who they are. And so they created their own production company and then said, would like to do a show with you. You know, is there any shows that we kind of talked about possible shows that I am interested in. Mm-hmm. And I saw Violet on Broadway last year. Out of all the shows I saw, that one got me the most. And so I said to them, I don't know, what do you think of this show? And as soon as they went and researched it, they said, we have to do it. You have to play Violet and we have to do it. So they went and got the rights, and there we were doing Violet. And it's a beautiful story, and it is so honest and so vulnerable. The journey that Violet, my character, goes on is something that I think everyone will be able to relate to. The story is about a girl that has a disfigured face because when she was a young teenager, her father accidentally hit her in the face with an axe blade, so it sliced her face open and she had to get it sewed up. So she's lived with this scar on her face, and in North Carolina in the 60s, that wasn't really, accepted. So it's about her journey to go and try and get this scar healed, and, everyone might not have this scar on their face like this character does in their life, but they all have something that they want fixed, and we're a society obsessed with beauty and perfection and wanting more, that sometimes we don't see the things that we do have. And I think that's why people will be able to relate to this. And
we have in our family, we talk about it's a moment, like when you look back on your life, what are the moments you'll talk about? I actually had somebody ask me that the other day. They said, do you have a favourite performing moment, Laura? Probably one of the most favourite moments in my performing history was the rehearsal with the 99-piece symphony orchestra for Les Mis when I was pregnant with Dodemaide. Honestly, I was surrounded by 99 musicians playing, and so of course the orchestra started, and she literally was doing a ballet to the music inside my tummy. And I'll never forget it because it was just the two of us were. It was a moment.
Magic.
And I think back, and here she's doing Cats on the other side of the world now, and I'm like, well, she knew.
Yeah.
Because she could feel what I was feeling listening to that, and she was just like, I'm having some of that. I'm having some of that.
Yeah.
That was a moment for me. So do you think the Rob Guest thing was like a moment?
Definitely when I performed those numbers, and I was really surprised by I could do that in my lounge room, and I could do it in front of my friends, but I was so proud and surprised. I stood up there and really gave everything that I had in those moments. But I love those moments. I have a very fond memory of learning. One of my first jobs in Australia was a chorus line, and I had the great privilege of covering and performing the role of Cassie. Mm-hmm. And that was just crazy. I was 20 or 21, and that role is like an incredible role. It's a massive role, and Anita Louise Coombe, who was playing the role, wasn't there for the first week of rehearsals, and so I got to step in for Cassie. And while the rest of the cast would go out to lunch, I would stay with Michael Gorman and Violet Karl, who are our assistant director and associate director and choreographer, and learn the Cassie dance, which is a 8-minute dance number, and it's huge. And that's a moment. And then at the end of the week, when I got to perform it for the first time in front of the cast, was pretty amazing, and we got, in our rehearsal room, we had a percussionist, Dean Cooper, who's a fantastic on the drums, and with the piano, it was one of those moments where I was like, is this really happening? And then when I got to go on eventually, because I would practice the number every night backstage as the understudy. Okay. And I would listen to them clap for Anita, and I was like, I can't wait. I hope one day I get to do that. And then the first time I got to go on, I couldn't believe that everyone was clapping for me. So that was another moment. That role was really special.
Make sure you write all these moments somewhere. Keep them. You'll have this video of you talking about that moment forever, because what happens when you talk about that moment, it brings people. It's magical. It creates something inside when you have a little. I call that your goodie bag, your gem, your jewel. That's my jewel box. That's.
I love it.
They're the places when I'm. If somebody said to me, "What do you do when the going gets tough?" I go to my jewel box.
Oh, I love that.
I open up my jewel box and it's, oh yes, and I read.
That's something so fabulous. I wish that I should have. I love that. I'm going to use that. And when it is tough, remember all the great times. I love that. Yeah. And because I've had already. I've lived my dream. It's funny, like of course once you do one thing, you always want more and more and more. But one day, I mean, I've always dreamt about going to Broadway, but really my dream was to be on stage in a professional musical, and I've done that. Mm-hmm. And it's important to remember that I already achieved such an amazing thing. I love that, to remember those really special times. I'm sure there'll be more to add to the collection. Yeah. That I really like that.
I want to say thank you so much for sharing your heart and soul with us today.
Oh, you're more than welcome.
And I look so forward to seeing you on stage as Violet.
Thanks. Okay. Can't wait to do it.
Best of luck with the rest of your future and your collecting of precious jewels.
I'm gonna keep them. Might keep a real box actually, and just have it empty. But there'll be. I know what it will be in it.
Little stories. Beautiful. All right, I'm gonna.
Thanks, Laura.
Thanks, Sam. Bye.
Bye.